Dear learners, welcome you all to the discussion on theories of knowledge. I am Professor Durga Shankar Rath from the Department of Library and Information Science, Vidyasagar University, West Bengal. Today we are going to explore the foundational ideas in epistemology, which is the philosophical study of knowledge. We will look at various theories including rationalism, empiricism, constructivism, and more. Understanding these theories will help us critically analyze how do we acquire and validate knowledge. So let's begin with what we are going to learn in the next few minutes. What is our learning objectives for this particular session? We will start by examining foundational theories of knowledge such as rationalism, empiricism, and constructivism, which form the basis of epistemology. We will discuss how these theories directly impact the roles and responsibilities of information professionals in managing, curating, and disseminating knowledge. You will also learn about explicit and tacit knowledge, their unique characteristics, and how they influence the way knowledge is managed within organizations. We will examine how these theories can be applied practically in areas such as knowledge creation, organizing, sharing, and preservation, emphasizing their real world significance. As we proceed, we will explore common challenges that arise in knowledge management, such as information overload or resistance to change, and discuss strategies to overcome these obstacles. Finally, we will look at how different frameworks and perspectives contribute to a more holistic understanding of knowledge, helping you to apply these insights in your professional practice. Finally, at the end of this session, you will not only understand these concepts but also feel confident about their practical application in your roles as information professionals. Now, why knowledge frameworks matter? Why do we understand about knowledge frameworks? Knowledge frameworks are essential tools for organizing, managing, and applying knowledge effectively, especially for information professionals. They provide structured approaches to differentiate between data, information, and actionable knowledge, supporting decision making and facilitating seamless knowledge sharing. In today's complex information landscape, these frameworks help navigate vast data volumes and integrate explicit, tacit, and experimental knowledge in different areas wherever it requires. Additionally, They promote continuous learning and improvement, enabling organizations to remain competitive and innovative. By leveraging knowledge frameworks, information professionals can ensure that knowledge remains a valuable and actionable resource for individuals and organizations alike. So, a framework will help us to follow a particular structure so that the deviation could be measured and we could rectify it time to time. Following that particular framework, we could see our progress and we can take necessary action whenever it is essential. Next, the evolution of knowledge theories. Evolution in the sense the theories of knowledge we study today have evolved over centuries, reflecting humanity's quest to understand what it means to know and how knowledge is acquired, justified, and applied. To understand theories of knowledge, we must start with ancient Greece, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. They laid the groundwork of knowledge. Plato introduced the idea of eternal truths, suggesting that knowledge exists beyond our senses. Aristotle, on the other hand, emphasized empirical observation, believing that knowledge comes from studying the world around us, our day to day experiences. Their ideas continue to influence the modern thought on knowledge. Knowledge about knowledge, rather. Now, if we segregate it into different periods, the ancient philosophy, the roots of knowledge theories can be traced back to ancient Greek philosophers. As I have mentioned, their names like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and Plato introduced the concept of knowledge as justified true belief, which became a cornerstone of epistemology. Justified true belief. Aristotle contributed by emphasizing empirical observation and logical reasoning. In the medieval period, during the Middle Ages, knowledge theories were deeply influenced by religion and theology. Thinkers like Thomas Aquinas sought to reconcile faith with reason, emphasizing divine revelation as a source of knowledge while maintaining the importance of rational inquiry. The Enlightenment brought a shift toward reason and science. Philosophers like Descartes championed rationalism, arguing that knowledge is derived from innate ideas and logical reasoning. On the other hand, Locke and Hume represented empiricism, emphasizing that knowledge originates from sensory experiences. Let's have a look between the differences between Descartes and Locke and Hume, where Descartes championed rationalism, arguing that knowledge is derived from innate idea and logical reasoning. On the other hand, where Locke and Hume represented empiricism, in contrast with rationalism, emphasizing that knowledge originates from the sensory experiences, our physical senses, and modern philosophy in the 18th and 19th centuries, Kant, Immanuel Kant synthesized rationalism and empiricism, proposing that while knowledge begins with experience, it is shaped by innate structures of the mind. Later, constructivist theories emerged, emphasizing that knowledge is actively constructed by individuals based on their experiences. So, in 18th and 19th centuries, the modern philosophers like Immanuel Kant and others, they have developed the constructivist theories, and finally the contemporary theories of the 20th and 21st century. We are going to look into what exactly is the outcome of the contemporary theories. In the 20th and 21st centuries, knowledge theories have expanded to include social epistemology. Social epistemology, which examines how communities create and validate knowledge. So, a group goal, that is, when we are talking about the society as a whole, which takes care of others, it's a community and they create and validate knowledge, not individual aspect. And feminist epistemology, of course, that is another significant development in the contemporary theories, which highlights the influence of social and cultural factors on what is accepted as knowledge. The rise of technology has also transformed our understanding, with theories now addressing information overload, digital humanities, digital knowledge, and also artificial intelligence and machine learning driven systems. So, these are the contribution of contemporary theories. This evolutionary journey highlights how knowledge theories adapt to social changes, new discoveries, and technological advancements, shaping how do we think about information and its role in our day-to-day lives. In the next few minutes, we are going to explore knowledge theory concepts. Let's dive into two foundational concepts in knowledge theory: epistemology and constructivism, both of which have significant implications for our information professionals, and they will help us to understand knowledge in our proper perspective. First, we will consider epistemology, which is the branch of philosophy that examines the nature, sources, and validity of knowledge. I'll repeat again: the nature, sources, and validity of knowledge is covered under the periphery of epistemology. It asks critical questions like what is knowledge, how do we acquire it, and how can we distinguish between justified beliefs and mere opinions. So, for information professionals, this knowledge about knowledge is essential, and that is why understanding epistemology is very much crucial, because it shapes how we evaluate and validate information. At the information jungle, how to find out the right information and distinct it from the other noise within the information, ensuring that we provide users with reliable and credible sources, provide them resources by adding value, the reliability and credibility. In a sense, epistemology helps us answer the fundamental question: how do we know what we know? I'll repeat again. How do we know what we know? Constructivism in knowledge theory is another significant aspect. Constructivism posits that knowledge is not simply absorbed but actively constructed by individuals through their experiences and interactions with the world. From this perspective, learning is a dynamic process shaped by context and personal interpretation. For information professionals, this means recognizing that users bring their own unique contexts and perspectives to how they understand and use information. It emphasizes the importance of tailoring resources and services to meet diverse needs and fostering environments that encourage exploration and interaction with information. It is some sort of carpentry along with some tools that will help us to finally shape the information according to its need and how do we understand knowledge, especially knowledge theories in depth. So in the next aspect of Descartes and Kant, we will learn about rationalism. Understanding knowledge theories in depth means understanding rationalism, understanding empiricism, and so on. What exactly rationalism is? Rationalism argues that knowledge comes primarily from reason and logic rather than sensory experience. Reason and logic. So, more reliability on reasoning and the logical approach instead of their sensory experience. Thinkers like René Descartes and Immanuel Kant emphasized the role of innate ideas and deductive reasoning in uncovering truths. So, they have emphasized about the innate ideas and deductive reasoning for finding the truth, for unfolding the truth. Examples of rationalist approaches include logical deductions and mathematical proofs, which rely on reason to establish validity. René Descartes, often called the father of modern philosophy, famously said, "I think, therefore I am." Very popular quotation, "I think, therefore I am." Rationalists believe that certain truths are innate and can be discovered through reasoning. For example, mathematical truths don't rely on experience, they are derived logically. Whatever we experience through our senses must have to be judged through reasoning. It has to go through the process of reasoning and the intellectual activity. Logically, you have to analyze it. For example, mathematical truths don't rely on experience, they are derived logically, and rationalism's influence is evident in areas like information organization, where logical classification systems are essential. Classification systems essentially purely based on logic. Characteristics must be decided based on what we are going to divide the universe. For information professional, rationalism highlights the importance of structured thinking and systematic approaches in managing knowledge. So these are the outcome of rationalism, and let's see how it differs in empiricism. Empiricism, on the other hand, is the theory that knowledge comes primarily from sensory experiences. Empiricism takes the opposite approach, claiming that knowledge comes from sensory experience. Proponents like John Locke, David Hume, and others, they have argued that our understanding of the world is built upon observations and experiences rather than innate ideas or purely logical deductions. For example, empirical methods such as observational studies and case studies rely on data gathered from real world experiences. This approach is foundational in fields like science and social research, where evidence based knowledge is key. John Locke argued that the mind is a blank slate or tabula rasa at birth, and everything we know is learned through experience. So it's a blank slate, our mind, at the birth, and everything we know is learned through experience. This view has shaped scientific methods which rely on observation and experimentation to discover truths. For information professionals, empiricism enforces that value of user feedback and evidence in designing effective systems and services. Always, from the librarian's point of view, we may decide about something, but unless it is tested by the user, unless we find a feedback from them, we cannot really decide about our future course of action. So, empirical or empiricism is the basis for decision making to implement our new ideas in libraries and information centers. Constructivism bridges the gap by suggesting that knowledge is constructed through interaction with the world. Constructivism views knowledge as something that is actively constructed by individuals rather than passively received. Actively constructed by individuals, not passively received. This theory emphasizes the role of interaction and context in shaping understanding. For example, in educational practices, constructivism promotes hands-on learning and collaborative activities that allow learners to build their own interpretations. Similarly, collaborative learning environments enable participants to co-create knowledge through discussion and shared experiences. Jean Piaget studied how children develop knowledge through experience and adoption. Lev Vygotsky emphasized the social aspect, arguing that learning is shaped by culture and social interactions. So, constructivism is widely applied in education for information professionals. Constructivism underscores the importance of user engagement and tailoring resources to fit diverse perspectives and contexts, ensuring meaningful interaction with information. And here, of course, allowing the users to make their own space within library and making libraries and information center as the third space apart from the office and home. Pragmatism is a theory that emphasizes the practical application of knowledge, arguing that knowledge is valuable when it works effectively in practice. Proponents like William James and John Dewey focused on how knowledge helps solve real world problems. John Dewey, the famous educationist, he has also focused on how knowledge helps to solve the day-to-day problem, the real world problems, and for example, in problem solving scenarios, pragmatism guides decision making based on what achieves the desired outcomes. In the context of information professionals, pragmatism encourages a focus on user needs and practical solutions such as designing some intuitive systems or providing actionable information is a significant aspect in this particular context. This approach ensures that knowledge serves a functional purpose in everyday context. Next, we will consider about skepticism. Skepticism questions whether certain knowledge is possible at all. Can we really know? David Hume, a prominent skeptic, doubted our ability to truly know cause and effect. So, David Hume is the very foremost proponent of skepticism, doubted that human being whether they are truly able to understand the cause and effect relationship, arguing that much of what we assume is based on habit rather than certainty. You see, most of us gather our understanding based on our habit inherited from our friends, our colleagues, our family personals, and that is why they are not certain as far David Hume is concerned. Skepticism challenges us to critically examine what we take for granted. Most of us we take for granted in everyday life because it rarely challenges our day-to-day practice, our habit. That's why we are likely to consume those truths. Foundationalism, another aspects of knowledge. Foundationalism suggests that knowledge is based on basic self-evident truths. It is built rather on basic self-evident truths. For example, axioms in mathematics, they serve as a foundation for complex theories. This contrasts with coherentism, which argues that knowledge is a network of interconnected beliefs without a single foundation. Interconnected belief and not a single foundation. Relativism, another significant features in knowledge, it argues that knowledge and truth are context dependent. So relativism becomes a very significant theory of knowledge. What is true for one culture or time period may not be true for another, or for the same society in different period of time. While this perspective promotes understanding and tolerance, critics argue that it undermines the possibility of universal truths. So relativism, as it is always relative in nature, it really has an hindrance to arrive at the universal truths. Postmodernism and knowledge, that is another theory. Postmodernism critiques the idea of universal truths, focusing instead on power, language, and subjectivity. Michael Foucault examined how knowledge is used to exert control, while Jacques Derrida emphasized the instability of language. Postmodernism challenges traditional notions of objectivity. These philosophers like Michael Foucault or Jacques Derrida have built the foundation of postmodern theory of knowledge. Scientific knowledge relies on empirical evidence and falsifiability. Karl Popper argued that a scientific theory must be testable and capable of being proven wrong. Science aims for objectivity, but it is also limited by human perspectives and biases. Religious and spiritual knowledge. Religious and spiritual knowledge is based on faith, revelation, and personal experience. While this form of knowledge often lacks empirical evidence, it provides meaning and guidance for billions of people. It also raises questions about the boundaries between faith and reason. Feminist epistemology critiques traditional theories of knowledge for ignoring gender perspectives. Thinkers like Sandra Harding argue that knowledge is situated and shaped by one's social position. This approach highlights the importance of diversity in knowledge production, indigenous and local knowledge. Indigenous knowledge systems are deeply connected to local environment and traditions. They offer valuable insights into sustainability and biodiversity. Recognizing and respecting these systems enriches our goal through global understanding of knowledge. In the digital era of knowledge management, it has revolutionized how we access and share knowledge. Today, information is just a click away, with the internet providing vast resources ranging from academic papers and ebooks to multimedia content and real-time data. This unprecedented accessibility has democratized knowledge, empowering individuals and organizations alike. However, this transformation has also brought significant challenges. One major issue is misinformation. Misinformation as well as disinformation, and that again involves where false or misleading content can spread rapidly, undermining trust and credibility. Another is information overload, where the sheer volume of data can overwhelm users, making it difficult to discern what is relevant or reliable. In this context, critical thinking has become an essential skill. Information professionals play a crucial role in guiding users to evaluate sources, verify facts, and navigate complex information landscapes effectively. By fostering digital literacy and promoting ethical information practices, we can ensure that knowledge in the digital age remains a powerful tool for learning and innovation rather than a source of confusion. There are some challenges in the theories of knowledge also. Epistemology grapple with fundamental and enduring challenges that remain central to our understanding of what it means to know. One key challenge is distinguishing truth from belief. While beliefs may be strongly held, they are not always true, and epistemology seeks to define the criteria that separate justified knowledge from mere opinion. Another challenge is balancing objectivity and subjectivity. While knowledge is often pursued as an objective truth, it is frequently influenced by subjective factors such as cultural context, personal experience, and biases. This tension is especially relevant in fields like social sciences and humanities. Epistemology also raises important ethical questions. How should knowledge be used responsibly? For example, should scientific discoveries with harmful potential be freely shared? Additionally, questions of authority arise. Who gets to define what is true? This is particularly significant in a world where power dynamics and access to resources can shape dominant narratives. These challenges are not merely theoretical, they have real world implications for how we create, share, and apply knowledge in various fields. For information professionals, addressing these questions is critical to fostering trust, inclusivity, and ethical practices in knowledge management. In conclusion, the theories of knowledge we have explored, rationalism, empiricism, constructivism, and others, offer valuable frameworks for understanding how we perceive and interpret reality. By studying these theories, we can critically examine our beliefs and contribute to informed decision making. We are going to take notes of some of the relevant questions. Some multiple choice questions are here for your test. What is the role of justification in the context of knowledge? First, to align with personal beliefs, to provide evidence supporting the truth, to promote creativity, to ensure accessibility. These are the four options, out of which the second option B, to provide evidence supporting the truth. That is how justification in this context of knowledge. Which of the following is an example of tacit knowledge? A written manual, an artist's intuition for color blending, metadata in library catalog, a scientific paper. Here also an artist's intuition for color blending is the example of tacit knowledge. What is the primary focus of social epistemology? Individual cognition, logical reasoning, collaborative knowledge creation, and empirical observations. Of that, social epistemology focuses on collaborative knowledge creation. Which system organizes knowledge into hierarchical categories in libraries? Ontologies, decimal classification, metadata standards, knowledge graphs, out of which duodecimal classification organizes knowledge into hierarchical categories in libraries. What is the example of justified knowledge in the context of scientific research? Justified knowledge is a theory supported by experimental data, not an opinion supported by anecdotal evidence, not a belief held without evidence, neither a hypothesis without testing. Why are ontologies important in library science? Because they define relationships between concepts. Other options, like they replace classification system, they store books digitally, they create hierarchical structures for cataloging, are not relevant for ontologies as it become important for libraries. Which theory of knowledge is best exemplified by a scientific method? Empiricism is the theory of knowledge which is best suited and exemplified by the scientific method. And what is the DIKW hierarchy stand for in the knowledge theory? Data, information, knowledge, wisdom. Nor development ideas, knowledge, wisdom, nor data insights, knowledge, workflow, not discovery intelligence, knowledge, wisdom. In pragmatism, knowledge is considered valid if it aligns with reality, it is logically consistent, it works effectively in practice, it is supported by evidence. The right answer is it works effectively in practice. Here are also a few subjective questions. How do the properties of knowledge, truth, justification, belief interact to define something as knowledge? What is the significance of social epistemology in the creation and validation of knowledge? With examples, you have to define it. Reflect on how the properties and theories of knowledge can be integrated into the practice of library and information science professionals. And how do classification systems like DDC aim in knowledge organization? And you have to explain also on how ontologies and taxonomies support knowledge representation with examples from library and information science. Some other questions are also given here for your test. Please go through it. Thank you for your patient listening.